What if extinction is no longer forever?
I mean, is it really possible to reverse extinction? And what's the real story behind the return of the dire wolf?
And maybe the biggest question of all, could this technology completely change the future of life on Earth? Well, we're about to find out.
Okay, so our story really kicks off with this Texas-based biotech company, Colossal Biosciences. They made an announcement that, honestly, sounds like it was pulled right from the pages of a sci-fi novel.
Right there on their website, they dropped a bombshell that basically stopped the entire scientific world in its tracks. They claimed that after 10,000 years, they had brought back the dire wolf. They said they'd achieved the revival of a species from its long-standing population of 0. And the craziest part? They said they had proof.
And just like that, they introduced the world to the first members of their new pack. 2 little pups, Remus and Romulus. And I mean, the pictures were just incredible. It really looked like a scientific miracle was happening in a lab in Dallas. But that's when the story took a very sharp turn.
Yeah, almost as soon as the celebration started, the scientific community began to push back. And they pushed back hard. All that wonder and excitement, it turned into this really fierce debate.
The famous journal Nature summed up the whole conflict perfectly with this headline. So, what was the big deal? Why were so many scientists calling foul on Colossal's amazing claim?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because this is the heart of the whole controversy. See, Colossal claimed they'd revived a species, but the reality, as Nature laid out, is that they started with cells from a living gray wolf. Then they changed that DNA and cloned the whole thing using egg cells from a domestic dog. So here's the bottom line, these pups weren't actually a resurrected species. They were, scientifically speaking, gene-edited hybrid clones. And that's not just semantics, that's a completely different thing.
And see, this isn't just about picking the right words. It gets at a really fundamental scientific idea. This whole fight over the dire wolf, it shows that there's this huge divide in how we even define de-extinction.
So the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, they actually have a name for what Colossal made. They call it a proxy species. Now, a proxy is basically a substitute. It represents an extinct animal. But, and this is a huge but, the IUCN is super clear. It is not a faithful replica. You've got genetic differences, behavioral differences. It's just not the same. And this gets to a really crucial point everyone agrees on. We simply cannot bring back a 100% perfect copy of an extinct animal. So the real question becomes, how do you make these proxies?
Well, the IUCN points to 3 main ways to do it. The first is called selective backbreeding. That's where you take living relatives and you breed them to bring back those old ancestral traits. The second is cloning, but you need perfectly preserved cells for that to work. And the third method? That's genome engineering, and that's exactly what Colossal did. Editing the DNA of a living animal to try and match an extinct one. And it's this third path that's leading them to their next and, frankly, even more mind-blowing project.
You see, before the direwolf, there was the one we've all dreamed about. The ultimate icon of the Ice Age, the woolly mammoth. This has always been Colossal's holy grail, their grand prize. And they say they're actually making progress. But again, the goal isn't to create a perfect mammoth clone. That's probably impossible. The idea, instead, is to use that genome engineering on a modern Asian elephant. You edit its DNA to help it survive in the cold, and then it can basically step in and fill the mammoth's old ecological job. And to show they were getting somewhere with this, they unveiled a pretty unusual piece of research. And this is it. Colossal called it the woolly mouse. It's a mouse that they engineered with some genetic mutations found in mammoths, which, well, it gave it shaggier hair. The company held this up as a huge breakthrough on the road to a mammoth proxy. But you can probably guess what happened next. The broader scientific community was once again not really buying it.
Nature reported that a lot of scientists basically saw this as a far cry from the massive complexity of engineering a cold-tolerant elephant. The leap from a hairy mouse to a functioning mammoth proxy is just enormous. It's a stark reminder of how incredibly difficult this whole challenge really is. But this is where the story takes a really important turn, because we're about to shift from talking about reviving the past to securing the future. And if you're finding this whole journey fascinating and you enjoy this kind of deep dive, I'd be so grateful if you'd support the channel with a like and a subscribe. It honestly helps so much and it means the world to me.
Okay, so what if we've been looking at this whole thing backwards? What if the real power of this technology isn't about bringing back icons from the past, but about saving the incredible species we have right here, right now?
This is where the science could genuinely change the world. Forget resurrecting the dead for a second. We could use these exact same tools to save the living. Just imagine being able to bring back lost genetic diversity to endangered species using DNA from old museum samples. Or what about helping them adapt to climate change by giving them genes for, say, heat tolerance from a related species? We could even edit out harmful mutations that build up in small, bottlenecked populations. This is the real, tangible promise of genetic engineering in the near future.
Take the pink pigeon, for example. It's an amazing comeback story. Its population went from just 10 birds to over 600. But here's the catch. Genetically, it's still in big trouble and could still go extinct. This technology could, in theory, restore the genetic diversity that was lost a century ago. It could give the species a real fighting chance for the long haul. I mean, this could be a revolutionary tool for saving life on Earth. But it also comes with some really profound risks.
Because when you have the ability to literally edit the code of life itself, you're stepping into a completely new era of responsibility. We're talking about making choices that have consequences on an evolutionary scale.
And the IUCN flags what might be the single biggest ethical risk of all. They call it moral hazard. It's this danger that if we start believing extinction is reversible, we might stop trying so hard to prevent it in the first place, right? If you think you can just bring an animal back later, why spend billions protecting its home now? That kind of thinking, it could be absolutely catastrophic.
And the list of potential dangers? It's a long one. A proxy species could become an invasive one. It could accidentally reintroduce ancient diseases. The cloning process itself can cause terrible suffering for the animals and their surrogate mothers. And maybe most importantly, these billion-dollar projects could suck up funding that's desperately needed to protect the species and the ecosystems that we still have.
So when you take a step back, you realize this is so much bigger than just one company or one species. This is about a fundamental change in our relationship with the natural world itself. For the first time in all of human history, we are gaining power over extinction. We're on the verge of holding the keys to life and death for entire species.
So, I have to turn this question over to you. I really want to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Do you think bringing back extinct animals would be a miracle or a mistake?